and I'm going to talk to your grandpa.
Yeah.
Hey, see, it's like he's on television.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's your name?
Does it take a picture too?
Hey?
It takes a picture too.
It's a videotape. Yeah, so we'll have both the sound and the video. Yeah.
That's all we want to.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask him some questions, okay? Alrighty. Generally, it takes us about an hour to get through these, Vincent.
No, it don't matter.
It doesn't matter, okay.
No, I got lots of time.
So the first thing is we'll just do the vital statistics, and I need to know your full name.
It was John Vincent Robicheau.
John Vincent.
Yeah, they call me Vincent,
Right.
but it was Chris and John Vincent.
Okay.
Yeah. I have to sign my checks that way and everything, because it's on my social card.
Okay,
And when I
yeah.
worked on jobs, my checks come because they put me down in the office, John Vincent.
John,
Yeah.
so they thought you were John, yes.
Yeah.
There's not a door I could close there, so I'm just wondering if that sound is going to be on the tape.
It might be where you can cut it down a little.
Could I? I won't get you to
Yeah.
move. Okay. I'll just turn it
If
down
you
to
can
mine.
find the button there.
Okay. I think that'll be a little better, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Your little fella there.
Yeah, because he can hear it easy.
Yeah.
I have to wear a hearing aid when I watch it.
Yeah. And who were your parents, Vincent?
Well, my parents was Joseph Robicheau and Mary Amiro. Now, they spelt their name A-M-E-R-O.
Yes, okay.
And some said that they were from an Irish descent. Now, I don't know,
All right.
because the Amiro was spelled A-M-E-R-I-A-U-L-T.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they spelt their name A-M-E-R-O.
Okay.
Like Emro or Amiro. So I can't tell you. I heard it on TV one time that those spelt their name that way had an Irish descent.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah.
One of our interviewers on this project is Amiro, and she spells it that way as well.
She does.
Yeah, A-M-E-R-O.
Yeah.
And her parents-in-law live in Marshalltown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them, there's quite a few of them do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Now, your mother's maiden name was Amiro. What were her parents' names? Do you remember your
her
grandparents?
parents was Frank Amiro, and his wife was named Eliza. It was his second wife.
Okay. And where were they from?
Dowsettville.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
They'd have been pretty close to the first settlers there.
Uh-huh.
You know, where Evel is digging that up now, where the mirrors come from, and it looks like they came from down Mirrors Hill or Sluice Point, because the first settler back there came from Sluice Point. He was a Doucette.
Uh-huh. And that's closer to Yarmouth, right?
Down there, yeah. And he came up here, and his name was Dave Dowsett. In them days, they all had a nickname. His was David. That's Big David.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard him talk about him a lot.
Was he a relative of your mother's parents?
Yeah, there was a hookup there.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see now. His daughter married the first Robicheau that come up here. It was hooked up on my father's side, not my mother.
Right.
Yeah. He came from Salmon River, and he came up here to work on a ship. They were building a ship. They used to build ships along the sea here.
Yeah.
And no trains, no buses, no way of traveling home. Weekends, they took him back to Dowsettville, some of the men he was working with.
Right.
And he met this David's daughter and married her, and they say he built the first house in Dowsettville out of lumber. All the rest was log houses.
Okay. Yeah. When would that have been? Any idea? Mid-1800s?
I think David there had settled, they said, in 1833.
Right. Okay.
So it would have been a little after that he married the daughter, you know.
Right.
Well, when he come here, his children might have been half grown. I don't know.
Right.
You know.
So there were both Robichauds and Amiros back in Dowsettville, is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Mostly that's what there was, and a few Thibodeaux.
Right.
But it's mixed up now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, different people from outside.
Yeah.
You know, I got the family tree here. Here's the Robichauds if you want to look at it
Yeah.
or take it and copy it. Or there was 4 brothers came back from Louisiana.
Really?
2 stayed here. 2 went to New Brunswick.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm relation to the ones in New Brunswick.
Yes. These are Robichauds you're talking
Yeah,
about.
Robichauds,
Right.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
The mirrors, we haven't got it all yet.
Yeah.
She's working on it now.
Now, through your family history, do you know how they got back from Louisiana back here?
No, I don't know. There's stories that there was a man and his wife walked from Maine all the way around, walked down here to the French shore, the first 2.
My goodness.
And I would imagine the rest of them come on old sailing ships and stuff. Yeah.
They just really wanted to get home again, eh?
Yeah, they liked it better here.
Yeah.
Well, Louisiana, where they took them, it was all swamps and poison snakes and alligators and everything
Yes.
else. Of course, today down there, they're pretty well off. They got oil and
Yeah.
everything, you know. But them days, they'd have had it pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. But yet they weren't coming back to as good a land as they left either,
That's
were they?
right, yeah. Yeah. See, they were in the valley.
Yes,
all the
I realize.
Acadians, yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose they wanted that farmland, you know, because there wasn't really a good excuse to expel them. They were harmless farmers, and
Exactly.
yeah, and they had been here for 150 years, like.
Mm-hmm.
And see, France never claimed any land for them.
Right.
See, the British didn't take the land; it was given to them when they settled that Utrecht settlement. They called it. They had fought for 106 years or something. Well, when they settled it, the British gave them the Maritimes here, Nova Scotia, and Rock of Gibraltar, and the only thing the French saved was Miquelon, Saint Pierre Miquelon. Yeah, but these farmers were still here.
Yes. Yeah.
They should have reserved them their land.
Yes.
So you can blame both parties.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were your grandparents' names on your father's side?
What was that?
Your father's parents' names.
Well, his father was named Joseph too.
Okay.
He was named after his father.
Yeah. I'm just going to put that right back there. Okay.
And his mother, my grandmother, was named Eliza.
And her last name was?
Was a Como.
She was a Camo. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But her mother was a Savory
All right.
from the park up here. You come by the park there?
Yes.
Yeah.
When you say she was from there, their homestead was up there?
She was one of those Savories.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how do you spell savory?
Well, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's Sovory, something like that.
Okay. We can probably
Yeah,
find that.
he was a member of Parliament and a judge, and the old feller, way
Yeah.
back, he was in politics
Uh-huh.
quite a bit. But that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
But
Now-
grandmother, I remember her well. That's why we can't talk French.
Oh.
You see, grandmother couldn't talk French.
Okay.
So father took care of his mother and father. That was custom years ago. And the kids grew up with the grandmother, so English was spoken in the house.
Yes, I see.
Well, when we went to school, it was English teachers here.
Yes.
You didn't get French teachers till you got below Weymouth. And there was a lot I had learned from hearing them talk when they'd have company come and so on, but I forgot it over the years. I didn't practice it, see?
Yes.
But I would learn it if I had to live again. It was handy.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now, your grandmother could speak French, but she chose not to? Is that
No, she was brought up English.
So where would you hear the French when they had company?
Well, like when mother's brothers come to visit, or different ones from Dowseville and so on, they'd sit there and talk French.
I see.
And once in a while, they'd forget herself, she'd forget herself and talk to us in French.
Yes.
You know. And we had picked up a lot of it. And, yeah, I could understand it just about all once.
Yes.
But I haven't used it for so long now.
Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
But
Yeah.
it was handy. I remember one time I was on a job, well, the Kingston Airport. I worked there when they built that during the war. And there was a French fella from up northern part of New Brunswick there somewhere working for another company, and he couldn't speak English.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a telegram to go home. His mother had died.
Oh,
And they dug me up on account of my name.
yes.
See, they couldn't make him understand.
Oh,
So they said that Robicheau, he'll be able to talk French. We'll go. So they come to my bunkhouse, woke me up, and told me the problem. They had him with them. Well, I said, I can't talk French, but I believe I can make him understand.
yes.
And I made him understand.
Oh.
Yeah, it was, see, I couldn't make a full sentence, but I knew all the words,
Yes.
you know. And he understood me. You know, he took the telegram and he went. It was handy. Different times I see something like that come up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But the time to learn it is when you're little, you're right.
That's right, yeah. And sometimes it's backwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when they talk English, when they're learning, they'll say it backwards.
Yes.
Like if there was a white cat going across the field, you'd look out and you'd say, look at that white cat going across the field.
Yes.
They would say, look at that cat and it's white.
Yes.
You know, it's,
Uh-huh.
you have to turn it around.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lived on the Gaspé coast when I was in high school. And I learned just from talking to my friends a lot of French, but I'm the same, I've forgotten a lot of it.
Yeah, you will forget it.
Yeah.
Now my son-in-law here, he was brought up in Edinburgh over here,
Yeah.
and he could speak French because they had it in school.
Aha.
And sometimes he'll say something to me in French, and it's like trying to think of somebody's name that you know well and you can't think of their name.
Yes. It's on the tip of your tongue,
Yeah.
as I say, yeah? Move this back
Yeah,
a little bit.
it would be awful handy.
Yeah,
They
and
should but learn it today.
It's part of your heritage too, so it's the
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just making a little adjustment here. Now, where were you born, Vincent?
In that big house over there.
Were you?
Yeah.
Okay. And what year was that?
1922.
And were you literally born in that house?
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
Yes.
We were all born in there.
How big was your family?
And there was 9 children,
Yes.
but 2 died young. One died with, what was it, whooping cough or something when she was very small.
Hmm.
And the other boy was 8 years old. He died with appendix.
Oh, what a shame. Yes.
And,
And where were you then in that family? Towards the end, I guess.
yeah, I'm next to the youngest one.
I see.
The youngest one lives right over there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And your father's parents owned that house, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was living down the road here a ways. And when they got old, you know, they called him to come up. He was the only son, the only child.
Oh.
And they got him to come up and stay in part of the house with them because they were getting old, you see.
Yes.
And yeah, she lives to be 96. And,
How old were you when she died then?
She died in, I was grown up.
Oh.
She died in the late 40s, I believe, or 50s.
Oh, so you knew her very well then.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was she the kind of grandmother that would sit and tell you stories very much? Or?
Yeah, my grandfather died in 1933, but I remember him well. I was, I think, 11 years old,
Yes.
and he was a wonderful old man.
Was he? What was he like?
And, he was good, you know, saintly man like.
Yes.
Her father was the same way. With 9 children, and he never raised a hand to them, or he never spoke in anger.
Nice.
You know, he was one of them. And you know, he didn't ask for respect because it was all around him.
Yes.
We were so proud just to walk behind him.
Oh.
See, he worked in the woods all his life.
Yes.
He cut wood till he was 93 years old.
My
And
goodness.
he quit.
Yes.
He died that year, yeah. Yeah, he was a wonderful man. Good man.
Yeah.
He helped a lot of people. Yeah.
How would he help people?
Well, he'd give them work when, you know, even if he didn't need them.
Mm-hmm.
He'd give them a job in the winter. And don't matter what they wanted, if he could do it, he would do it for them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember he used to give them like potatoes and stuff in the spring, people on the back road, and different things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did your family farm?
Well, just the small farm.
Yes.
For your own use.
I see.
He raised enough for the house and for the camps.
Right.
And he kept a couple of cows, and he couldn't make a living on the farm. He used to contract in the woods, logging.
Now, how would that work?
Well, they used to pay him, they call it by the 1,000 board feet. For instance, a log 16 feet long and 12 inches to the top probably have 100 board feet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all scaled.
Mm-hmm.
And then they used to bring it out and pile it on a brow alongside the river or the lake, wherever they was logging. And then about every 2 weeks, the company would send a scaler in. He'd scale them all, mark them, and you could dump them down in the water and make room for more,
Right.
which is illegal today.
Uh-huh.
You can't dump stuff in the, trees in the water. Yeah, and then you could repile them again. And in the spring, they'd go settle up. Here's something I'll tell you, you'll never see again. That man that scaled the logs, he was on a percentage basis like. And there was a bunch up the river, here and there, logging. And one winter, Father was the only man upriver. The rest was out handier. And old Mr. Hankison, he said, I can't send a man way up in there, 15, 20 miles, He said, there's only your camp up there. He said it wouldn't pay. He said, you'll have to scale your own logs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll pay you for them. And Father didn't want to do it because, remember, those logs coming down the river mixed with everybody else's logs, and there's a percentage of sinkage, and so on. And he said, I'm not worried about it. He said, you scale them and bring me the slips in the spring and I'll pay you. Now he scaled his own, his own logs, took the slips in, and the man paid him, no problem.
No kidding. Yeah.
You would never see that today.
No.
If you ain't got 2 or 3 lawyers and contracts, why you can't operate.
Yeah.
It was just word of mouth.
Yeah. And
that
trust.
was it. You trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when you say they scaled them, that was, you mean they estimated the number of board feet?
No, they had a rule, and it
Uh-huh.
measured the top. Yeah. It opened up, it was calipers like that. And it
Right.
opened up, went over the log, and it showed you how big the log was.
Yes.
And then you take the footage, and it would tell you on the rule what was in it.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if the log was smaller at the other end, do you know what I mean? How it
Well, they scaled the small end.
they did both ends.
Because
Oh,
you
okay.
see the saw cut it straight.
Yes.
So there'd be a small slab come off of it up here, but as it got back, there was a bigger slab.
Yes.
But then the next cut, you'd get a board and it would be even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They scaled the small end.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now they only cut the big stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And they left it grow. You could go back. Oh, I remember they logged one piece here 5, 6 times in my time. And then the companies bought it, and they logged it once, and it'll be 60, 70 years before you cut into it
Yeah.
again. See, it didn't pay to haul a bunch of little ones
Mm-hmm.
in the first place.
Yeah.
So they just cut the big timber and left the rest.
Right.
And it saved the land, grew back up again.
Yeah. They were using horses, I presume, then.
They used horses and oxen.
Did they?
Yeah.
Yes. Did your father own his own animals?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometime he'd have 2, 3 pair, and then sometime he'd hire a team if he needed another team.
Right.
Now, we used to go, he'd go after haying, and he'd check with the company, and they'd say, we got a certain piece we want logged this winter. And they'd show it to him on a map.
Yeah.
Now, it was virgin land, most of it then,
Mhm.
And he'd come home, and we'd take baskets and load up with food, and we'd go, and he'd find this piece of land, and he'd prepare to log it. He'd look for a good place for water, for the camps and the animals. And then he had a crosscut saw and axes. We'd saw them big hemlock down, take the bark off them. We had to go and peeling time. And we'd make a little place to get in that night. They used to call it lean-to. And then we'd cut all the stuff for to build the buildings. And then he'd come out, and when he'd go in again, he'd take a team. And he'd pull all them up to where he wanted them and build the camps and the barns. I remember the first winter I went, my job was to take the bark and lay it out flat and let it dry there, you know, while they were building the camp, so they could shingle. They used to shingle with the bark off of the trees.
My goodness.
It was all built on logs, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Were they intended to be used just for one season?
Yeah, sometime they'd use them maybe 3 years.
Right.
I remember there was one place there, he was 2-3 years. But then they'd move and they'd just take the boards, you know, that they had built the table with and the bunks and so on. And if they boarded the roof, they would take them off and take them to another place.
Okay.
But a lot of times they just used poles
Right.
and bark. See?
Yeah.
The bark was about that wide, as long as this table. And they were low, right low.
Yeah.
And they used to heat easy.
Yeah.
And they were comfortable and warm. They were nice.
How long would it take them to build those camps?
Oh, it didn't take long.
No.
No, he put up a camp, and I can't quite remember, but it wasn't long. A lot of times the barn didn't have any floor, you know,
Yeah.
for where the cattle stayed or anything. And the camps only had boards where you walked, and the cook's corner, and underneath the bunks, there was no boards.
Right.
It was a long ways to tote boards in there.
Sure.
You know? So it took the bare necessities.
Yes.
Yeah.
How many men would he have working with him then?
Not too many.
No.
No, he'd probably have 3 teams. Well, there was 3 teamsters. There was 2 men to a team cutting. That'd be 6, 7, 8, 9. Maybe 1 on the brow would be 10.
What's a brow?
Where you pile the logs.
Okay.
They call it a brow.
Right.
And maybe a dozen is all he'd have. But, you know, some camps had a lot of men. They
Yes.
was a big outfit, you know. Yeah.
Now, when you say a team, are you referring to oxen or horses?
Either way, a
Okay.
team can be either one.
I
He
see.
mostly had oxen.
Right.
See, the horse was a luxury like. For instance, every year a horse got older and he was worth less. Every year the ox got bigger and he was worth more for beef.
Okay.
So if anything happened to the horse, you had to dispose of him.
Yes.
They'd
Yeah.
shoot him, take him up in the pasture and shoot him. Anything happened to the ox, you sold him for beef.
Yes. Aha.
So they made money off them while they used them.
Right.
And it was oxen around the farm. You see, when you were gone, your wife could go hook them up and go get the vegetables or get firewood or anything, no problem. But the horses them days, it took a good man to handle them. They were range horses come in from Saskatchewan,
Oh.
and they had never seen a barn or anything. They were wild.
Oh.
Oh yeah, I worked them. Some of them was awful hard to handle.
Aha.
Yeah. Well, today they got all big, beautiful horses,
Yeah.
local bred,
Yeah.
and they don't use them.
Yeah.
I worked a horse one winter. He had killed a man. He was born nasty, you know, and he was that way all his life. The company kept him. Oh, he was old last time I seen him. He'd work good and everything, but I don't know how you couldn't turn your back on him. Yeah.
How did he kill the man?
Jumped on him and smashed him to the ground.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they kept him after that, eh?
Well, that's when the company got him.
Yeah. Oh.
You know,
Yeah.
as a rule, they'd buy them because they were such tough old things. They'd get a lot of work out of them. But yeah, I seen 2 like that. There's not many. See, if a horse is bad because he's been misused or mishandled and so on, you can win him back by being kind to him and go easy. And you'll win him back after a while. But if they're born nasty, they don't leave them. Yeah. You have to really show him who's boss.
Right.
Yeah.
I interviewed a fella in Freeport the other day, and he talks about having a bulky horse.
Bucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he basically He talked about conquering that horse, and he did it with a big stick, you know.
Yeah, some you had too. And most of them, I never had to beat a balky horse. Or if you got one that got lazy, you could take a stick and give him a little switching to smarten him up.
Yeah.
But there's always a reason, I found.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked one that they had, the company, he had come in from the west and they unloaded him and he never worked. He would not haul the garbage away from the cookhouses.
Yes.
The one time he balked on the railroad track and they had to unhook him, the train was coming, he wouldn't start.
Oh.
And they sent and got different men and come there to break him, to make him work. And they never could make him work.
Mm.
So I had worked a few that caused a problem and I got along with them good. So the super asked me one day if I would take him and try him.
Mm-hmm.
He said he's in the barn there, we're feeding him for nothing. Well, I said, I'll try, you know. So he brought him in and we worked him all winter, me and another feller, with this bad one, had him alongside of him. And the owner of the company wouldn't believe it, that he was working. He come in one day to see it.
Mm-hmm.
And after he seen it, he said, I'll believe it now.
Yeah.
He said, that horse works. And he was a beautiful working horse. And his problem was, he was stupid, like
Yes.
dumb. He was low in intelligence, you know.
Yes.
And you could tell all that by the horse's head once you got used to him. You could go in a barn where there was 50 horses, and if there was one bad one, you could pick it out once you got used to him.
What would you look for?
Well, I used to like what they call the Roman nose. They were a little harder to train. Yeah, the Roman nose.
Oh, yes, yes.
A little harder to train, but once you got them trained, they would never let you down.
Aha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were a little bit low in intelligence,
Right.
but boy, they loved to work. And you get them trained and you had a good team.
Mm-hmm.
You take a horse that's very intelligent, sometimes it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
Because he knows it's much nicer out eating grass than it is
Yes.
working.
Yeah.
And then they try to put them together that way, the same disposition.
Right.
That's why you saw different colors together.
Aha. Oops. Hi. Hello. Come in. Come in.
Oh, Kathy, come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still stop here
You
for a
can
minute.
shut something. You know, if you work with animals from day to day, you get awful close to them.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah. You'll understand them as well as they'll understand you, you know.
Yeah. Who taught you to work with animals?
Well, following the old timers,
Yeah.
you know. I went in the woods when I was 14 years old.
I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Yeah, and those people, they were different than today.
Mm-hmm.
They were, well, they were people of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any education like, but they were self-educated and they had a lot of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And they could teach you and learn you, you know. Yeah.
So how far did you go in school then?
I graded in grade 7, but I didn't go back that year, so
No.
I only had grade 6. And the problem was, I never used it.
Mm-hmm.
I never picked up a pencil afterwards. If I had to use it, I would have self-educated myself some, but I didn't. So I got no education, you might as well say.
No schooling.
Yeah, I could read,
Yeah.
but yet I've made tapes. I made a tape for a psychologist teacher
Uh-huh. About what?
about what we're talking about and their way of life and their expressions and everything that happened.
Yeah.
And they're all about them.
Yes.
I didn't want to make it. I said, my dear man, I got no education. He said, I had talked to him till 12:30 one night.
Mm-hmm.
He was down here on a visit from the States. He had just graduated. And he said, you got something we can't learn in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it. So the last time I talked to him, I asked him how he made out with his tape. He said, I play it to my students all the time.
Aha. Yeah. Well, that's exactly why we're doing this project, you know, because the young people have no idea what
That's right.
your generation knows. See you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, a lot of the people I've interviewed have told me they did leave school at 14 because by law they were able to.
I went to help Father in the woods. He
Mhm.
didn't say I had to,
No.
but I thought it was my duty, same as the rest of them.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want me to go this winter, why, I'll go. And he said, if you want to come, we can use you.
Mhm.
And here's something. I was 14, and we'd be 15, 20 miles in the woods. And being the youngest, this job fell to me about taking the note to the company store so they could get provisions brought. They'd bring them as far as they could take them.
Right.
And when the road ended for their truck, they'd unload it, and then we'd come out the next day with a team and tote it in.
Right.
And I used to walk that. I'd leave 4 daylight in the morning and get back after dark. And I don't know if you'd find somebody 14 years old today would do that.
No kidding. Now you would have to bring it all the way to the company store?
Ha-
You brought the note all the way?
Yeah.
Yes.
The cook would write it out what he
Yes.
needed. She did mostly things for his cupboard, you know,
Yes.
and their tobacco
Mm-hmm.
and a few different things like that, and feed for the animals.
Mm-hmm.
That was very important, feed for the animals. And they'd bring it up with a truck to where the road ended, and we'd come out the next day, and me and another fellow with a team, and we towed it into the camp. Every couple of weeks or so I'd do that.
Yeah. What company store was this now?
It was at Hankerson in Weymouth.
Hankison's, okay.
The Weymouth Motors Garage,
Yes.
well, it would be their father, as their grandfather.
All right.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
a wonderful man, nice man, to work for.
What was his first name? Do you remember?
George.
George Hankinson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he logged for him about all the time. And when he got older, well, he logged some off his own land, but the war changed everything. You see, it got mobile, it got machinery,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't go into that. So
Right.
he just stayed home, cut wood off his own land till he retired.
Mm-hmm.
And that put us out. We tried working for companies, but it wasn't the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on construction, and I done repair and operate machinery and stuff. I had it good too. They used me good. I wish I was still doing it
Yes. Yeah.
because time is long, you know. Yeah.
Now, your dad always would have to set up a camp near a river, I presume.
Yeah, there were certain places where they had to be hauled out,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to build the camp like on the land itself that you was going to log.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you built the camp down to the river, you'd be too far that way. So you'd build it right on the land that you were logging.
Okay.
See? When you were done at night, you were in the camp on the land. There was no way to shorten it. You know,
Okay.
if you built the camp to the river,
Yes.
well, then at night you had to come
Exactly.
to the camp.
Yeah.
But if you built it here, the teams hauled it to the river, and the men at night come to the camp. They were right there.
Right. But would they haul? Now you mentioned a bower. Is that what you called that place?
The brow.
Brow.
Yeah.
That now was that by the river or would that be?
Oh yeah, right on the bank.
Okay.
Now what they would do, you see, that there was no roads then, and they brought that out by river drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So what they'd do, they'd build what they call a boom. It was one log chained to another,
Yes.
and it made a circle out in the lake or the river, wherever, and that was held right there. And your logs dumped down in there,
Mm-hmm.
see? So they couldn't go adrift all over the place.
Right.
You know, if it was a lake and you had 2 over there and 3 over there, you know, you'd never get them gathered up.
Yeah.
So what would happen, the river drivers would come in the spring when the ice let go, and they'd break those booms open,
Yes.
and they'd take all those logs with the rest of them and go.
And how would they travel with the logs? The river drivers. Would they walk along the
Oh,
banks?
they'd have a boat,
Yes.
and yeah, they had trails along the water for
Mm-hmm.
some. And I was brought way out, put near the Weymouth, all along out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had little dams, you know, and they'd back the water up.
Right.
And when they'd drive, they'd open the gate and let the water go, and it would carry the logs, you see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I
But
never.
that was a whole different job from what you and your father did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a trade by itself. I never ever worked. Just a little bit one time, but I never ever worked on the drive. Matter of fact, I was afraid of it.
Mhm.
It was awful dangerous.
I was just about to ask you, like
Yeah.
even your work.
Well,
must
yeah,
have
you
been-
see, a lot of them places, the logs would start crossways and get caught, and then they'd pile up.
Yes.
And you had to go and get that loose.
And how would they do that?
Well, they do it by hand.
Yeah.
Sometime if it was real bad, they'd use dynamite, but most generally they'd do it by hand with peavies and axes, and they'd be one log maybe, the key they called it, that was holding everything.
Right.
And they'd go, and when you'd hit that with an axe, it would burst. There was
Yes.
such a pressure on it.
Wow.
And then they'd all start tumbling down behind you, and there you was, out in the river,
Yeah.
and all that coming at you.
Yeah.
But they'd jump the first log they got a hold of, and they'd ride it out.
You're kidding.
Yeah, they'd ride the river out, yeah.
Boy.
It was
Do you
all
remember
good.
any accidents like of that kind in your day, or?
Oh, I only heard them talk about them.
Right.
I don't remember seeing any myself.
No.
There's one feller's buried up the river. A fellow by the name of Black. They never found him till spring, till late, you know. And he was decomposed, and they buried him alongside the river. He was killed. See, they'd squash you to death. Those logs, you know, biggity bang down through the rocks.
Yeah.
Well, you know what mad water's like.
White
You know,
water.
Yeah,
Yeah.
going, you know, them rapids.
Yes.
See, and they'd send the logs down first, and they call it a wing. And they'd haul them ashore and make a tunnel like. And then all the logs would go down through there if it was a bad place, you see. And when they was done, they'd take them down. They called it winging off. And they'd have to go down to the next narrow place and build that again, you see. Yeah.
How long would that take them? Say the camp is 15 or 20 miles back from the...
It didn't take them long, 2-3 weeks.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had mobile cooks, I call it. He'd
Yeah.
move from one place to the other, and they had cookies that carried the food, because they ate like 4 times a day, like,
Yeah.
see, they never stopped.
Yeah.
Till dark, like. Yeah. And they used to get wet.
Yes.
Oh, soaking something wet. They'd fall in the river, you know,
Gee.
and makes you wonder today when they say don't go out in the dampness, you know.
Yeah.
There's an awful change that way.
Mm-hmm. Were there certain families, or like were blacks or Indians better drivers than most?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there were some experts at it.
Mm-hmm.
I heard my oldest brother say that he seen a fellow named Eddie Tebow. He said what he'd do, you'd never believe it, you know,
Yeah.
once you seen it. They used to holler, when they'd get ready to let it go, they know they was going to break it. They call it break the jam. They'd holler, green hands ashore.
Yes.
See, all the ones out there helping that maybe their first year or
Yes.
something, they call them green hands. Green hands ashore, and they'd all go ashore, and then he'd break the key and let her go.
Gee.
Yeah.
Sounds like young man's work to me.
Yeah, oh, it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, they had cork boots.
I was going to ask what they were
yeah.
on their feet.
Oh, yeah, they had to have cork boots in order to stay on them logs.
Yeah.
And they had they had it all figured out. They'd be on the log going down through a rapid, and they'd look, and the log was going to hit a rock. Well, now, when it would hit the rock and stop, you'd go flying.
Yes.
See, what they'd do, they'd watch, and when it, just as it hit the rock, they'd jump up in the air,
Yes.
and the log stopped, and they come back down on
Unbelievable.
it. Oh, yeah.
Like acrobats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a trade, you know.
But there must have been real skills involved in cutting wood as well.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
had to look out. It was very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very dangerous. I know people got hurt bad in the woods.
Yeah.
One fellow up here, he never walked again. He was in a wheelchair the rest of his life.
Yeah.
You had to look out, you know, when you fell those big trees. Sometimes they'd hook one, you know. The limbs would hook a tree,
Yes.
and they'd take it so far, and they'd let it go. And when it would come back, it would break off and come at you.
Oh.
You had to be careful, you
Yeah.
know. And sometimes they'd hit a bunch of trees, and it would lift the back end up, the butt, and then the trees would spring back, and she'd come back. That's what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
He'd come back and hit him here, and then slid down off him.
Oh dear.
Took his legs
Yeah.
and everything, yeah.
This is going to sound like a very stupid question, but how did they actually cut the trees? Did they use axes?
Yeah, well, they'd make a notch with an axe,
Yes.
you know. Whichever way they wanted the tree to go, they'd make a notch, and then they'd saw it with crosscut saws.
Okay.
Put wedges in it,
Right.
help tip it, you know. It would go 3 ways. You could follow it the way it was leaning, or it would go a little to the left, or it would go to the right.
Mm-hmm.
And you pick out your best place, you know, where you wanted it to go.
You would control that.
Yeah, you
I
could
see.
control it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And say, how long would it take to cut through a fairly big tree?
Oh, some of them big frozen trees, they used to freeze hard then.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, it'd take 15, 20 minutes to saw that down.
Yeah.
Maybe more, some of them, I can't remember.
Right.
Especially them big hardwoods.
Uh-huh. And then you'd have to cut all the limbs.
Cut the limbs all off
Yeah.
it, cut the top off. They used to haul them with the teams long length. They didn't block them up
Mm-hmm.
because you could haul more that way.
Yes.
See, if you cut them all up in short logs, you couldn't pile them on the sled, you know.
Right.
And it hauled easier. You could haul more. But they'd go in the summer and fall those big hemlocks and take the bark off them.
Mm-hmm.
Because hemlocks is heavy as lead.
Mm-hmm.
And they would dry all summer, you know, they would dry. And come winter, they was right light, and then they were smooth as that table there.
Yes.
And they would slip. Once the road was packed,
Yes.
they would slip along nice, you know.
Uh-huh.
You know.
So, what time of year could you not go in the woods, or was it something they did year round?
Well, when it comes spring,
Yeah.
you know, and everything broke up, they most generally come out.
Right.
You know, a lot of the places you had to cross was swamp and lowland and so, but that would freeze,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd travel on it all winter. But when that broke up, you were done.
And that's when the driving would begin, I
Yeah,
suppose. Yeah.
when the ice left the river and the lakes, then the drivers took,
Right.
and that was cold water.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and them fellows get wet and work all day in it.
Now, one of the men working with your father, how much would he make for?
His day's pay?
Yeah.
Mine was my cigarettes and my board. Of course, I had a good appetite. That helped some. But they would get, according to what they was doing, a good teamster would probably get $1.50 a day, and somebody just helping the choppers get $1 a day. That went for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Wages never started going up much till the war broke out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you remember the Depression at all?
Oh yeah, I grew up in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a thing I often thought, when they teach you in school, they never seem to explain anything to you the right way. I remember in the Depression I come home bare feet in the gravel, there was no paved roads in. Now we used to have a lard pail, and that was bread and molasses. And that molasses go all through that bread, and at noon you had a mess, but you had to eat it. And it was good stuff to eat, molasses, you know. Anyway,
That was your lunch you brought to school?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
come home one day when I was just a small boy, I don't know how old. And there was a butcher down here. He only had one arm. He used to pedal on the road, and he most generally done that in the summer when the tourists was on.
Yeah.
And he'd stop talk with Father. Now, Father couldn't buy any meat in the summer. There was no money, you know.
Right.
But he'd talk with him because sometimes they'd trade cattle or something, or sell him a lame ox or something. And I come along one day, and he had a caravan like, and he'd have these quarters of beef in the caravan, covered over, you know, and a horse. And he had a meat saw and big knives, and whatever you wanted, he'd cut.
With his one arm?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
He put the stub on the quarter to hold it, and I can see him yet. He was a big man, and he made a living with that one arm.
Yes.
There was no welfare, no
No.
compensation, no nothing then. And there was a tourist car come along, and the teacher had been telling us about our system, our our politics and so on. That was the greatest in the world, democratic system and so on. They'd been preaching that for 2 or 3 days. Tourist car come along, stopped, and they got out and they went and they ordered a full-size steak off a big porter. Oh my, it was a big one. Cut that off, and they had a big black dog, and they threw it to the dog. And we was looking at that steak, mouth running water. That dog threw that up in the air a couple of times, rolled it around in the gravel, and he walked away and left it. And I was looking at it. They put it in the trunk of the car and drove off. And I was thinking, we're living in the greatest system in the world, but I can't have what the dog don't want.
Mm-hmm.
See how confusion that is to a kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, it's never explained the right way.
Yeah.
they more or less control you. It's like the law. The law doesn't exactly protect you, it controls you, you know. And I never forgot that.
Did your father say anything to you that day about what had just happened there? Did he have
No,
any comment?
I didn't mention it.
No.
But, yeah, when anything happened like that, he would, if anything, you know, went against us or something, he would say, don't let it eat on you. Forget it. He was very religious, see, too. That helped.
Okay.
See, there's something. Are you religious?
I was brought up a Catholic.
Yeah.
I don't go to church often now because there's no church in Freeport for me. I go to the Baptist church once in a while.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But I'm religious in my own way.
Yeah, well, he was very, very religious, and he wouldn't let anything like that eat on us. He would let it go. And his neighbor over there was English. He was a cook. His name was Cook, and he was a Baptist. And him and Father were the best of friends for all their life.
Right.
And each had a different church.
Sure.
But it didn't make no difference. And that's getting gone now. Maybe it'll come back, I don't know. But for quite a while, it was a problem. Yeah, they were the best friends you ever seen.
Your father was Catholic, I see.
Yeah.
Robicheau, yeah.
Yeah, he brought up Catholics. And
Now,
brought
where
us
was the Catholic church in
up here to Plimpton there,
Okay.
just up away, yeah.
So what was Sunday like for you when you were growing up?
Oh, you had to go to church
Yeah.
in the morning. And in the afternoon or evening, they'd have vespers or prayer, you know.
At the church?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had more of it then.
Yes.
Today they don't have so much.
Oh no, they even have services Saturday night now, and that was unheard of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, would you pray regularly in the home as a family together, or?
No, not too much. The sister, I remember years ago in the winter, used to read the Bible to Mother and them. See, Mother couldn't read.
Okay.
Mother used to walk from Dowsardville out here to the church when she was a girl.
Yeah. That's how
And
far?
walk back. It's 8 or 9 miles.
My
again,
goodness. Yeah.
And she said when she'd get pretty near to the church, she'd put her shoes on. Then when she'd go back, when she'd get there, she'd take them off to save them, you know.
Yes.
It was what they saved why they survived. It wasn't what they earned so much. They were always saving something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned coming home from school on the gravel road in your bare feet.
Yeah.
In the Depression.
Yeah.
Was that because you couldn't afford shoes? Your family couldn't?
Yeah, that's right. You only afford them in the winter.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was bare feet.
Now,
But
in a lot of Catholic families, it was kind of understood that one of the boys would be a priest or one of the girls would be a nun. Did you feel that expectation?
yeah, there was a lot of that. And another thing, the Catholics had big families. And they name them after the apostles or the saints. Well, there was a dozen Johns in the village and a dozen Joes and Pauls and Peters, and they had to give them a nickname or you couldn't distinguish one from the other.
Right.
And there was a lot of funny things happen. This was part of that tape I made him.
Yeah.
I remember there was one feller telling me that he worked for the Wagoners here in Weymouth. They used in the mill business too in logging. And he said the boss went back in concession and he bought a pair of oxen, paid for them, we had a bill of sale and whatnot. And he said, I will send somebody to walk them home. They didn't truck much then because there was no trucks, very few. So he said the next day he sent me and another fellow back and he gave me the man's name and he said so many houses the other side of the church and whatnot. And he said, you inquire, you'll find him. And he said, we met a man walking in the road when we got right there by the church and we asked him where this fellow lived. And he said, he don't live around here that I know.
Right.
Oh, they said, yes, it's right close here somewhere. And no, he said, I don't know him. Well, the other fellow gave him the nickname. When he gave him the nickname, oh, damn it, he said, that's me. Now, that might sound awful stupid, but if you go back in them times, they probably never got a letter or wrote one.
Right.
They never used their name.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was no mail for years and years till we growed up, you know. Now there's mailbox every day.
Yeah.
But it was funny.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and in different cases like that. Father went down to see a feller. He had worked with him years ago. And he was old. He heard he was sick. He said, I got to go down and see Moses. Moses Saunier. And he had told him he lived on the back road there off of the Dagan River. So Father went and Jesse took him down, my brother. And when they got down by a bridge there, they stopped. There was a man walking in the road. And they asked him where Moses Saunier lived. He said, I don't know of any Moses Saunier around here. And, oh yeah, Father said he lives right here somewhere. And they said, I don't know. Well, Jesse said, they call him Moise Tunar. Oh, he still lives right there.
Aha, yeah. Moise Tunar.
Yeah.
I wonder what that
Moses, well, the bridge, they claim when the cars hit it that night and the horses run over it, sound like thunder.
Okay.
And they used to call it the Thunder Bridge. And
he was right there.
Tunar's Thunder, you know,
Yeah. Aha.
A lot of the nicknames meant something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, down here there was a crowd by the name of Whites, but they were supposed, you know, that would be LeBlancs.
Mm-hmm.
And the old fellow used to keep sheep. And they used to call them the Burbees.
The what?
The Burbees, sheep.
Burbees.
Yeah, Burbee is sheep.
Oh,
yeah.
yes, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was his nickname.
He was a small man, yeah, and
Yeah.
they used to call him T. Joe Burbee.
Aha.
Yeah.
Little
Now,
Joe.
I've had people come here from the States and ask me what their people's nickname was. They wanted to tell their grandchildren,
Yes.
and they didn't know what it was.
Uh-huh.
Because, you know, there were people from here that went over there. One fella come not too many years ago. He wanted to know what his people's nickname was, and he said it was Tushun. You know, they always called him Frank Tushun and Dave Tushun. And, well, I said it means little dog.
Yeah.
That Tishan, you know.
Yes.
The old fellow, wherever he went, he had a little dog to his heels.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids would say in French, look at the man with the little dog.
Yes.
You know, got a little nom with le Tushun, you see. And it stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Another nickname, it was very few knowed what it was, and it still goes yet today. Once in a while they say it. And it was Philading. Their name, they say the Philadings. And what it was, the old neighbor, he'd have his window up and he'd play the fiddle. And when he tuned the fiddle, you know how the strings will ding when they tune them there?
Mm-hmm.
And the kids would say, hear the fiddle ding, let's
Yeah.
go over and hear the music. And it stuck, old Philading.
That's a great name.
Yeah, it stuck. There was very few that they'd take it as an offense or a slur. Very few, you know. But, it meant something. They were back road here. There was a lot of Miros, and their name was Gavesh, their nickname. And what it was, the old grandfather would go climb up on his gate at night, and he'd put his hands like that, and he'd holler to his cows to come home.
Uh-huh.
And he'd holler, ko, vesh, you know.
Yeah.
And then they got it, Gavesh, the kids.
Uh-huh.
And it stuck,
Uh-huh.
you know.
Yeah. Did you have a nickname?
No, they'd say Vincent Josie,
Yes.
something like that, Vincent Josie Joe or something. On my mother's side, their nickname was Babine.
Mm-hmm.
And the old fella had a big lip,
Yes.
the lower lip. That's Babine, you know. And I remember there was one they called her Mary Bobeck, and that's a good kiss.
Uh-huh.
She used to say, I'll give you a good kiss. You do this and you do that to the kids, you know. They called her Bobeck.
Oh, it's cute.
Yeah. It's gone, pretty well gone.
Yeah. What did you call your father growing up? Did you call him father? Or-
Called him Papa. Yeah.
And your mother was...
We called her Mom.
And what about your grandparents?
We used to call him grandmother and then grandfather.
Okay.
Yeah. He used to talk a little bit crooked.
How do you mean?
Well, he had broken English.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
he had come from Dowsonville, you know.
Yes.
We used to hear him at night sometime. He'd say, Liza, it's 9:30. You better wind the cat and throw the clock out. Get her backwards.
Got the message across. Yeah.
Yeah. Wind the cat, throw the clock out.
I meant to ask you when you were talking about working back in the woods and that long walk into the company store with your note.
Mm.
You'd be walking all day. What would you see walking through the woods all by yourself?
Oh, you'd see deers a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and them days there was a lot of moose.
Oh,
But you didn't see moose too much along the road.
right.
There was always deer, and you'd see the old fox. And I used to try to get it in the moonlight,
Mm-hmm.
because it walked nicer in the moonlight, you know. See, if you get back after dark, well, you take even an hour after dark. It's hard going.
Mm-hmm.
Pitch dark, you know.
Yeah.
You butt something, a tree blowed across the road or something.
Yeah.
I remember one time a tree blowed across the road and I hit it right here, and it upset me this way. And when I got up, I had to figure out which way I was going in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
Because I made a somerset like.
Yeah.
I was thinking whether I was going out or whether I was going up. I had to stop and figure it out. That's something you had to learn. You see, there was no mountains or no peaks or no landmarks.
Mm-hmm.
And when you travel in them woods, you had to know your way around or you were in trouble.
So how would you know?
Well, we learned it from following the old timers.
Yeah.
Yeah. My father, he was, he could go right straight through the South Shore if he wanted to. He was good in the woods.
Would he have a compass?
No, we had none then.
No.
No. I remember the first compass we ever got.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm just going to turn my tape.
Will that be played somewhere?
They're just going to take excerpts from it
Oh, I see.
on the website.
There was something, always something would tell you. That's gone now. The young people don't know because they have charts, compasses, and so on, and this and that. Well, that's wonderful. I've worked with them. But if it blows out the window, then you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
See? And they should learn the old-fashioned way, too, you know. And we always listened to what the old fellows were saying. That brought me home one time by listening to what they had to say.
What happened?
Well, they'd say, we went up to a certain place, we went up to the Northern, something like that. Well, you never forgot that. So if you was up there and you got lost, then you had to go south to come home.
And how would you know which way was south?
Well, I come home that night. I was with I didn't know what happened. That he asked me to take his horses in to bring them out. There was a bunch hunting, and this is about 10, 15 miles in the woods back here. And there was a horse road. And when I got there was one deer short. You were allowed 2 deers apiece, and there was 3 of them, 3 Americans, I guess. He said, you'll have to blanket the horse, tie him out, and you got to go hunting tomorrow with us. We got to try to get another deer. And I thought he knew what he was doing. I thought he had a compass and whatnot, so I went. He said, come with me. We went up over this big hardwood ridge, through a bunch of swales, and we saw a big buck deer. And he never got a shot at it, but he'd make me go way around, try to bring him back on him. And we done that, and it was getting late. He saw him a couple of times, you know. And I said, Bobby, we got to go home. It's going to rain, and it's getting late. So he started, and he didn't go far. And if you're walking behind, you can see where they're going. He was going in a circle, you know. He said, look, there's somebody else in here. Look, the tracks of the moss. I said, yeah, and that somebody else is right here. It's you and I. Oh, no, he said. I said, yes, it is. I said, I threw a package of cigarette, the box over there. I used to smoke cigarettes then all the time. Alongside that blowed up tree, and he went and looked and was there. He said, yeah, and he hauled off his coat, and he was going to go. And I said, now hold on a minute. If I have to sleep out, I don't want to be sweating.
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute. Wait a minute, I'll take you out of here. So I'd always heard them say, when they went up around the West's Bog and them places, they went to the Northern. So I said, I got to go to the Southern to go to the Uniac Lake. That's where the camp was, down the lake. So there was a warm wind coming from the Southern. I lit a cigarette and the smoke, you know. I said, come on, we got to go. It's going to be dark pretty soon. Well, he said, it ain't that way. Well, I said, it sure ain't that way. And I followed the smoke there, and I kept going, kept that breeze right in my face. And just as it got dark, I come out to the lake.
Yeah.
And we no more than got in the camp when it took to raining.
Wow.
And the Americans said, boy, you were lucky, we were worried about you. You get in for that storm. Well, he said, I don't know what that boy was following, but he saved my soul tonight.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah.
How old would you have been at that point?
Oh, in my teens, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another time, see, if you knew, you would take notice. Another time, the superintendent of the company come and asked me on a Sunday. We used to stay over Sundays a lot. And I thought he wanted me to help him blaze the line. And he said, bring an axe, come with me, and I'll allow you a day. But he wanted somebody to take him in the woods, bring him out. Now, he never said. If he'd have told me that, I'd have watched out. So I just followed him off there behind him, you know, waiting, and he never found the line. He couldn't. And when it got late in the afternoon, Harry said, can you take me home? Well, you just might as well hit me in the head with a ball.
Yeah.
And I said, if I say anything, it's going to make it worse. And every night when we'd come in from down where we browed the logs to the meadow and to the river, me and Dennis used to cut maples, and little maples for the deers to eat, you know, so they'd bud. And they had made a trail, and they used to go up in that part of the country to hide. It was thick, heavy timber. So I said, I'm going to make a big circle, and if I can find that trail, it'll take me right out to where we're browing our logs. I'm lucky I found it. And we followed it, and I come right out, and he stomped his feet, brushed the snow off him. Boy, he said, you're good in the woods. And I felt like saying, if you know how close you come. Because I had nothing much to go by.
Yeah. Quick thinking, though.
Yeah.
Did you guide much?
Yeah, we guided, me and my brothers used to guide Americans.
Was Dennis your brother?
No, he was a friend up the road here.
Right.
He got drowned with me.
Oh.
Yeah, back to my camp.
What year was that?
Oh gosh, that's 20 years ago or more, yeah. They think he had a heart attack and fell out of the boat. We found him, he was only, he wasn't the width of that room from the shore. He could walk to shore.
Shoot, yeah. When you guided for the Americans, was that good money?
No. What it was, we wanted to go hunting ourselves. So we would take them, and they supplied everything, and we didn't charge no wages.
Okay.
And in return, they took us to the States and took us wherever we wanted to go. They took Jesse down to Indiana. He wanted to see the races. Took me up to New York. I wanted to visit my sister.
Yes.
Took me up to New York City and wanted to get there. They'd bring us everything we wanted.
Right.
And we didn't charge them anything. One feller had married a girl from down here.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of their names?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Their names was DeSantis, their last name.
Right. All one family.
Yeah, they were brothers.
I see.
Yeah, 3, 4 brothers, yeah. And once in a while they'd bring a friend. And they couldn't get over how we traveled through the woods.
I bet. Yeah. So how old were you when they took you to New York City?
Up in my 20s, way up in my 20s, yeah.
Do you remember how you felt about New York City coming from a little
Yeah,
city?
I didn't like it.
No.
I liked it to go visit it and see it.
Yeah.
And my niece took us somewhere every day. And I enjoyed it that way, but I wouldn't want to stay there.
No.
Took us up the Empire State Building. She took us to Radio City, and you name it, and she took us.
Yeah.
And it was good because we had a guide, like. Yeah. And they've wanted me to go back since. I got 2 nieces still over there who live in Long Island. But I never cared for it.
No.
No. You didn't know anybody. You couldn't talk to anybody. And there was 11 million people, and I was all alone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else. And my brother Jesse, he was a good head. He could do anything. And he only had grade 3. No matter what it was, they'd ask him, he'd go do it. He'd hire on for everything. He built his own house. Don't matter what he wanted to do, he could do it. He was real genius-like. Well, he went with them, and they was going to Indiana, and they had done a motor job on the car. And they never tightened the head down enough, and they got so far, and she started leaking, skipping. And he had watched him in the garage, and he was a good mechanic. And he said, I know what's wrong. They pulled over the side of the road and stopped. And he said, the gasket's leaking, she's not tight enough. And he said, we just passed the garage right up there. And he said, if I had a wrench, I could fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Sunday. Well, John said, today is Sunday. And oh yeah, well, he said, I'll go get the wrench. And he said, I can fix it. John said, you won't get no wrench there. He said, you're not in Nova Scotia now.
Right.
Jesse said, I don't believe that. And this was one of his first trips over the States. He believed all people was the same.
Yeah.
It was the environment they lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Made them different, you know. And he went up to the service station. He went and asked for the foreman. And he told the foreman his problem. And he said, I can fix it. He said, she just wants to be tightened up a little. Well, now he said, we don't do that. Let wrenches go. They were quite expensive. They had a dial on them, you know, for everybody on.
Yeah.
But he said, I'm going to let you have it. The accent, you see, he asked him where he was from. He said, I'm going to let you have it. And yes, he took it and he went and he tightened everything up, fixed it, and he come back and he wanted to pay him for it. And no, he said, I'm glad to do it. But he said, you don't know it. But I could have never lent anybody over here that ring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Said I'd have never seen it again. Well, now you see, he was the same. He wanted to let him have the wrench, do him a favor.
Yeah.
But where he was living,
He'd be a fool.
yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
a fool to do it.
Yeah. It's a shame, eh?
So people are born the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've always been interested in people, and I always take people as I find them, and I never had any trouble to get along with people.
Yeah.
I boarded all over the country. And I got interested in it, and I read the history of mankind, you know, the people. If you go back far enough, we're the same people. We're a Jew or a Gentile.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all the size of it.
Yeah.
But a different country and a different religion and a different language, and it's spread out, you know. And
Yeah.
yeah, we're all the same people.
Indeed.
Yeah.
You're right. You look at a parent with a little child and the expression is the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the love is there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
What contact would you have had with Micmacs in those years in the woods?
I didn't have too much.
No.
No, there wasn't many here, you know.
Right.
No, very little. Yeah, very little. No.
When you had some free time, where would you go? Would you tend to go to Digby or to Weymouth?
We used to go to Digby quite a lot.
Yeah. How would you get there?
Well, somebody'd have a truck with a box on the back, and he'd take a bunch.
Yeah.
And it was go to movies them days,
Yeah.
and then go to restaurant, and then come home.
Yeah.
If you had a couple of dollars, you could make it.
Sure. Big day out.
Yeah.
So who did you marry then, Vincent?
I married a Robicheau.
Okay.
Yeah, she was from down Weymouth North. They had moved right up here. Her mother lost her husband, and she married a fellow from down here.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no relation, and we never could find any hookup, but there must have been some way back.
Way back, yeah.
But this fellow got my family tree.
Right.
He tried to find out, and he couldn't.
No.
Went back 2 generations, as far as he could go. Yeah,
And what was your wife's first name?
Margaret.
Margaret.
Yeah, I lost her. It'd be 3 years in December.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you meet Margaret?
Right down here, there was a big store,
Yeah.
3-story building. This captain over here had. And then there was another store on the other side, and a woman lived in it, and then she kept post office. Well, in the big store there, on the first floor, they used to have a Nickelodeon, and they'd play that on Saturday nights, one day and another, and
What,
dance
like
a little.
jukebox, you mean?
eh?
A
Yeah,
nickel-
jukebox, yeah.
Right.
And I met her there, and I used to walk her home and so on. And I went from there. I must have hung around. She was going to school yet.
Yes.
I was 35 when we got married, and she was 20.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Sweet young thing.
eh?
A sweet young thing. I see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it worked good because she appeared to be older than what she was, and at that time I seemed to be younger, they said.
Yes. Yeah.
And they never noticed it much. Of course, my father was older than my mother, and my grandfather was 15, 20 years older than my grandmother. It run in the family. Yeah.
So 1935, or you were 35, 22 and 30. You got married in 57?
57.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So by that time there would have been electricity and...
Oh yeah, we built this house.
Did you?
Yeah, I got the log sawed. I had bought the land and paid for it, logged it and paid for it, and then I was working out. But I always wanted a house here.
Yes.
There was a barn on it, but no house. He lived with his sister over here, and he never had a house, the old fella.
Right.
And that was what enticed me to get married.
What's
I
that?
wanted to build a house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Everybody going home Friday night, they were married and going home.
Yeah.
You know, and I wasn't going anywhere, you know.
Yeah.
So that kind of gave me the notion to get married.
Right.
But see, when we grew up all through the Depression and everything, we never dreamed of getting married because we couldn't afford it.
Is that
How
so?
would you go?
Yeah.
Working for $1 a day, how would you build a house? And
Yeah.
yeah.
How much did this house cost you to build in 19...
$10,000. And
Wow.
when we moved in it, we didn't know a cent of it.
Is that so?
She worked,
Yeah.
and she could save money.
Yes?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Where did Margaret work?
She worked at a Met there in Digby a long time, from the time it started. And then she worked in different places, but the last time she was out to the motel there where the boat comes in.
Okay,
She
yes.
worked there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, before I came to talk to you, Sue Amiro, this woman that I told you is doing some interviews too, said she had worked with your wife at the Met. It just occurred to me now that you mentioned that.
Yeah, she probably did. She knew
About
everybody in
25
Digby.
years ago, she said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she knew everybody in Digby,
Uh-huh.
and she was a good soul. She
Yeah.
was a good partner.
How many children did you have?
We just had the two.
Did you? Yeah.
There's one in Massachusetts, and the youngest one moved in with me when I come home from the hospital.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Who did you buy your land from?
Old Frank Melanson, they used to call him Frank Oliver.
Right.
And he was an old batch. He lived over here, and his sister was an old maid. They lived together there.
Yes.
And when he got old, real old, he made up his mind to sell it. And I used to haul his wood with the horse and do his work, and people tried to buy that land, my gosh, but he wouldn't sell it, you know.
Right.
And one spring I was getting ready to go to Cape Breton, and I said, you better let me haul your wood out right away, because I'm going to be gone for the summer. So we went and we hauled it, and come home, he paid me, and he come over afterwards. He said, don't go to Cape Breton. I said, why? He said, I want you to buy my land. I'm all done, he said. He was getting kind of blind, and he was in his 80s, you know.
Oh.
Well, I said, yeah, I'd love to have it, but what do you want for it? He said, I'll sell it to you for $8,000. It was worth 30 or 40, you know, it's a lot of wood on it.
Yes.
Them days, that was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I said, if I can get the money, Frank, I'll buy it. I'll go see tomorrow. So I went down to Velosco, where they had that big mill. And my brother here had married his daughter. And he told me to go down. And I told him, and he said, I'll go see it tomorrow. So he come and he looked at some of the land. He said, that's good enough. I'll give you the money.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me the money, and I bought it. Then I logged it to pay for it.
Okay. That was the agreement, kind of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I had to sell him the logs.
Yes.
But we had no agreement or nothing. And every once in a while he'd say, look, we'll go up to that lawyer someday. We'll get that drawn up. I said, yeah. And that went on till I paid for it.
Yes.
And no agreement.
No. Aha.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to make that money?
It just took me about a year.
Rob?
Yeah. And I lived off it besides. So. And then I logged some for to build a house.
Mm-hmm.
But we were saving the money, and when we moved in it, she kept track of everything. Mm-hmm. And when we moved in it, I said, what did it cost us? She said, it cost $10,000. And we didn't know a cent on it.
Mm-hmm. Did you do the actual construction yourself?
No, her stepfather built it for me. See, I didn't want to leave my work.
Right.
And I hired a young feller to, they closed it in. And then that winter I worked around the doors and gyprock, and
Right.
and she painted, you know, and so on. But he built it and closed it in for me. Yeah.
What kind of work were you going to do in Cape Breton if you had gone down?
Construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, once the war came, logging for you and your family kind
It
of
ended.
declined.
Yeah, it went. That way of life was gone. They started building roads.
Mm-hmm.
Bulldozers, you know, got popular and everything, and truck roads. And it was companies, and it wasn't the same working for a company.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have much value of a man or a horse. They
When
didn't
did you
care.
own your last horse?
Oh, it was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
I bought a tractor afterwards, and I kept that till a few years ago, and then the wife didn't want me to go in the woods anymore alone
Yes.
with a power saw. And, well, I said, the only way I'll stay home is if I sell that tractor.
Yeah.
I couldn't look at it and not go.
Yeah.
So I sold it. Oh, gosh, it must be 7, 8 years, I imagine. I sold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same as the horse.
No.
The horse was company. It was alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I had never heard about them bringing horses from out west to Nova Scotia.
Oh, yeah. We used to go up to Middleton in
Yeah.
June. They'd come in with carloads.
Yeah.
And they'd be big and fat, you know, eating that prairie grass. They were nice. But then some of them were so wild. You'd get the odd one, you know, was good. But they had never been, they were range horses.
Okay. So
Never
they
been
weren't
in
the
the
big
barn.
draft horses then.
Yeah, they were great big horses.
They were,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget it. I asked the old feller, I said, you must get a nasty one once in a while because you have so many come in. he said, yeah, once in a while I get one. Well, I said, what do you do with it? Just sell that, you know, you spoil your business.
Yeah.
And people didn't want them anyhow. I said, what do you ever do with them? He said, I got a barn down there special for that. He said, I keep putting them in there. When I get a barn full, he said, I ship them to Newfoundland. It struck me to laugh. Them poor Newfoundlanders never known what a nice, kind horse was. What an awful thing, you know. If it had been half and half, it wouldn't have been so bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember
His name was Jack Parr.
They were what? His name was Jack?
Yeah, the dealer, you know.
Yes.
Jack Parr, yeah.
What would you pay for a decent horse then in Middleton?
Oh, $200, I imagine then.
Yeah.
Christ, now be in the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And to get them shod, I don't know what it cost. I used to show them myself.
You did, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a blacksmith. Father had a blacksmith over there, and he used to make the shoes. Yes, he used to make the shoes for them and show them.
Yes.
And I used to shoe the horses when there was horses around.
Now, to shoe an ox is quite a different thing than shoeing a horse.
Yeah, there's 2 to every foot.
2 shoes to
Yeah,
each ox foot.
because it has to be flexible. you
Yes.
see. They would walk stub-toed. I don't think they could they could get along with the one shoe right around.
Right.
But you see a horse had a cloven foot.
Yes.
They only took the one shoe.
Now, did you put your oxen in a sling?
Yeah, you had
did.
to.
Okay.
Because there was something about the way they was built. They didn't have that balance a horse has.
Right. Okay.
And you'd put a sling under them, a belt, and tighten it up and take their weight, take their heft off, and then you'd pick their leg up and set it on a beam that come out there.
Right.
Tie it there.
Oh.
And then you'd shoot it, and then you'd let that leg go, and you'd pick up the other one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you had to, you put them in a stanger, like a manger, you know.
Right.
I don't know. If you started from a calf, picking up their feet and training them, you might get them. But you see, the double claw would be flopping around
Yes.
when you'd be
Okay.
nailing on it.
Right.
But by putting it on this beam, you know, there was a beam come out each side.
Yeah.
By putting the foot on there and tying it there, it made it solid to nail it or work at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you'd have had quite a job trying to show them without.
Right.
Yeah.
There must have been a reason for it, I guess. Eh?
Oh,
Think
yeah.
about- yeah.
Yeah.
How often would you have to do that with oxen?
Oh, they'd go a month or so before you had to shift the shoes.
Yeah.
See, after it growed out, unless they tore one off, and the horse the same, the hoof growed out, then the shoe went with it.
Oh.
So the shoe would get way out and it wouldn't be in the right place, so you'd
Okay.
have to take that shoe off of the horse,
Right.
haul it back where it went,
Uh-huh.
and then you pared that off,
Okay.
like cutting your fingernails, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Someone once told me that if you don't, the horse doesn't have a good foot, you don't have a good horse. you
Yeah,
know? Is
yeah.
are oxen's feet as tricky as was?
Yeah, there were a difference in them. The white face had a good hoof, solid. It was cream colored. And the Durham, the red Durham, he had a black hoof and it was corky like. It didn't hold shoes good. If he got them caught, tear them right off.
Okay.
Yeah, but the light hoof, the light colored hoof used to be better. But the ox, you had very little margin to drive the nail.
Oh, is that so?
Or you would prick them, they call it. It would be like shoving it under your fingernail,
Yes.
and it would make them lame and fester. With the horse, you had all kinds of room.
Aha.
Yeah, all kinds of room.
So now this team that you've carved here is, you said, half Hereford and half Durham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when they're gray like that, they're part gray Durham.
And what would be the point of mixing those two breeds? You get a better animal?
Well, the Durham was heavier, you know. It'd give them half. And a lot of it is just what chance you had to breed them.
Yes.
If you had a Hereford cow and he had a Durham bull, well, you didn't go anywhere else. That's
Right.
good enough. See?
Yes.
See, the first ox was the Devonshire, come from Devonshire, England,
Okay.
and they were all red with just little horns, and they were slender built, but they were awful good oxen. They were tough, strong, but they was nothing for beef.
Mm-hmm.
So the government brought the Hereford in the Durham
Right.
to make more beef, and it kind of run them out. There's no more now.
No. When would the government have brought these breeds in your father's day? Or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Father was young, he said there were a lot of Devons. They were about all Devons.
Right. Okay.
And then
Huh.
they wanted better beef, so the Hereford was all beef, and the Durham was all beef.
Right.
So they brought them in, and it gradually run the Devon out.
Mm-hmm.
But they still have them in England.
How would you select which calf was going to turn out to be a good ox?
You couldn't tell too much
No.
from the ox, from the calf. See,
No.
they had to be castrated up to 6 months old.
That soon?
Yeah,
When they're young.
If you went and waited a year, then they'd have the appearance of a bull, and they'd look just like a bull.
I see.
Horns and ugly face, you know.
Yeah.
So they used to
No
want.
horns?
They'd have low horns.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So they made up to 6 months, and then they'd get the impression of an ox. You see, a lot of people don't know the difference between an ox and a bull.
And so what is the difference other than being castrated? How do they...
That's the only difference.
That's the only difference?
Yeah.
But they look different, you're saying?
Yeah, it changes the whole animal.
Aha.
Now it don't on a horse.
No.
Now they let a horse go sometime till maybe a year or 2 years old.
Yes.
And not let him develop the stallion neck and the
Yes.
appearance, you know. And then they'd castrate him.
Yeah.
It never changed him in any other way. He still looked like a stallion.
Yes.
But the ox had changed him.
And tell me again how the ox looks different from a bull.
Well, his horns comes up high like that, and he's
That's
got
natural?
Yeah, that'll
gonna
grow
just-
natural once he's castrated.
Yeah. Just a second. I'm going to...
Yeah, and he's got a narrower head.
Yeah.
A bull has got a wide,
Okay.
ugly head on him, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the body itself?
The body don't change itself much, no. Now there was another type too. If you let the calf go,
Yeah.
we'll say till he was a year old or more,
Uh-huh.
then he was castrated, he would develop the full appearance of the bull.
Right.
But he wouldn't be a bull, so they used to call him a stag.
Oh.
They thought it made him more rugged for work and
Right.
so on, but then they wasn't saleable. So
I see.
they kind of quit that.
Okay.
But they called him a stag. He had the appearance of a bull and everything,
Right.
but yet he was castrated. See?
Right. Now,
Yeah.
I went on an interview with a guy on the neck. His name is Stuart Carty.
Yeah, I remember him well.
Raised
Father
oxen.
bought cattle from him,
You have.
from his father, yeah.
Now, talking to him, the appearance of his team was the be-all and end-all, it seems. Like he wanted his team to look good together, right?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
match team. How important was that when you were back in the woods?
Not too much.
No.
I've seen like a white face and a red one,
Right.
or a spotted face and a red one, and like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they had two good ones put together for work, see all this and all these trimmings and everything. That's like exhibition,
Yeah.
and that's just hobbying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they'd have bells on them just the same because they used to depend on that a lot. They'd wonder when the team's going to get here. In the winter, you'd hear them bells for a long way.
Yes.
They'd go out and listen. They'd say, "Oh, he's coming."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here's something I'm going to tell you. That's if you want to take the time.
Yes.
I don't hold you up too long.
No. It's your time.
I took a pair one time, and we were right alongside of a lake, but we were hauling the logs a long ways, quite a ways out to the river.
Mm-hmm.
And they had cut some logs on the other side of the river, on the other side of the lake. And it was getting towards spring, and Father said, them logs have got to come out because if the lake breaks up, we can't get over there.
Right.
He said, would you go down and pull them all up together, and then I'll cut a road into them, and he said, I'll have the teams take them to the river. Because he says, it's getting late. I said, yeah, I'll go tomorrow. So I went and took a pair of oxen and their dinners and mine, and I started pulling the logs all up together, and it took the snow, and all the way down the lake was bare as that. But there were signs of a storm coming, and the animals would tell you when there was a storm coming. And I said, I want to get the job done, I'll go. Wasn't so awful far, just down across the lake. The lake wasn't so awful big. But at noon when I come to feed them, boy, it had snowed. It was coming down. But when you're in the thick woods, you don't notice it like when you're out in the open, you see.
Yeah.
And when I fed them there, mister, there was some snow. And when I got done, pretty near dark, and I come down to the lake, I had to stop. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face.
Oh.
The wind was blowing and
Yeah.
the snow like a blizzard. And there was no way on the face of the earth I could guide them oxen across that lake.
They wouldn't go?
Oh, they would go.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And they couldn't smell their tracks. There was a foot of new snow.
Yes.
And they couldn't see anything, and there was nothing. The wind was going around.
Yeah.
And I said, I got a chance. I got on the sled, I had a front sled, and I hauled the coat up over my head, and I told them to go. And they couldn't see nothing, smell nothing. And on the lake, when you're riding on, it's level as the floor. Can't feel the movement. When you hit land, you feel the bumps,
Right.
And I kind of timed myself about how long it would take me to go up across the lake. And I kept that in mind, and they was going. I didn't know which way they was going. I'd gone by, I felt them hit the ground. Felt the sleighs move, bumping. And I waited, and after a while they stopped. And I went up, and I put my hand on the nigh one. They used to call this the nigh one.
Yes.
And I had a coat up over my head. He was all covered with that wet snow, was sticking to him.
Yeah.
And when my hand got up to his horns, it was against the barn door.
Ah,
You'll never forget that.
my goodness. Yeah. Ah.
And that reminds me of talking to an atheist one time, and he was a science teacher.
Right.
And I said to him one day, I said, the science says an animal's controlled by his instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he says, that's right, without that he couldn't survive. Well, I said, where did he get it? I said, he had to have it the day he come here.
That's
And
right.
he's just got the right amount today.
Yes.
It didn't. You can't involve instinct. It's spiritual like. He scratched his head, and he got in the car. He put the window down. He scratched his head again. And he said, "They don't know." I felt like saying, "No, I know," but I didn't want to push it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let him dwell on it a
Yeah,
bit.
and it's those things, like I say, when you work with animals and stuff, you get close to them, and they teach you something. Now, they told me that day that there was something that brought them to that barn.
Yeah.
Something we couldn't see.
That's right.
Yeah. And when your horses would get restless in the afternoon, didn't want to stand, you better get going because something was coming.
In bad weather.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they knowed it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you always call your oxen the same names?
Pretty well.
Yeah. What would you call yours?
I used to call them Spark and Diamond.
Spark and Diamond. Okay.
If you had one was like, oh, he'd be quicker than the other one, maybe a little. You'd call him Sparky.
Right.
And if you had one there, he was real bright. You'd call him Diamond.
Yes.
Yeah, and some would call him Bright,
Yes.
Sparking Bright.
Right.
And different names.
But Spark wouldn't always be the nigh ox,
Pretty well.
would he?
Yeah, oh yeah. It seemed to come out better that way.
And what's the one's the nigh? What's the other one?
The off one.
The off. Oh, off.
Yeah.
Oh, off.
See, you always work from this side or in front of them.
Right.
And what it is, it's supposed to be the near one.
Yes.
But it changes over, you know, it's the nigh one they call
Right.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you've really told me some wonderful things. I'm wondering if there's anything I haven't asked you about that
Well,
that I
you,
should.
you can come again
Yeah.
if you think of something.
Well,
But,
one thing I do want to ask, and maybe it's just putting you on the spot too much. Sometimes you need a little thinking time. But I know on the boats, the guys had lots of superstitions. Were there superstitions in the woods as well?
not that I know.
No.
And the boats had a lot of it.
Yeah.
Don't say pig and this and that and so
Yeah.
on. But if they just stopped to think, they had to bring the pigs here in the first place.
Indeed.
Eh? I told one fellow one day, he said, don't say pig on the boat or bacon or pork or anything. Well, I said, how did they get here? The Europeans had to bring them.
Indeed. Noah
yeah.
had to have them on his boat.
It was, there's something I'd like to tell you, but I wouldn't want to put it on a tape or put it on that.
You sure? You don't think it would be valuable for the young people to hear at some point? Or?
No,
No?
and
Okay, I'll turn it off then.
yeah.
Okay. Hang on one second. I'm not off yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah,
Okay.
on the right, it's my grandfather. His name was Joseph Robicheau.
Right.
And then going to the left, the little girl was my sister Lily, and the bigger girl was my sister Bernice. And grandmother is holding my little brother Charlie. And on top of the load, the one on the right was my brother Eddie, and the one on the left was my brother Eugene.
Okay. That's great. And I'll get you to tell me who this lady was here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the lady there is Mrs. Captain Burney over here. In the house was Joe Oliver's house. It's been gone for years. There was 3 Oliver brothers in the village here, and that was Joe. And the one over here, you can't see it in back of the well, was John. And then the one right here, over here where Father lived, was Dennis Oliver.
Aha. She's not a relative though, really.
She wasn't,
No,
no. She's in our Father's dooryard there.
Okay.
See, and
Yeah.
they took the picture, and that's the only picture I can find of that house.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been gone so long, so I kept it. I got it enlarged, and
Your father took that picture? He had a camera? Do you know?
or it would be, might have been somebody with her. I don't
Yes.
know.
Right.
Yeah, they were quite well-off people.
She looks it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they were great friends, the father and mother.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, now, I'll let you free.